Hi, I'm Linda. Glad to have you back. Well, I started another painting and I finished already. Very similar to the last one that I did with the pretty sunrise. I had all the same colors on my palette. So I thought I'd use the same paints up. And so I created this one, only it has pine trees way in the distance there. And some pretty foliage down here with a little cabin that's sitting in there in the corner with a pond. And I think I'm going to call this Cabin Fever. So I hope you can follow along, pause and paint. So let's get started. And here are the oils I used. Liquid clear for the base on the canvas, titanium white, black, phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna, sap green, yellow ochre, cad yellow, deep hue, and cadmium yellow, and red. And I prepared my canvas with some liquid clear, a very, very light coat. Very light. You don't want to have a lot on there. In fact, I am going to wipe a little bit off with a shop rag. There's the blue shop towel. Just get as much of that off as you can. So now I'm starting with some cad yellow on the side there, going back and forth, little crisscross, and just working my way all the way across, blending it in. Just go all about halfway down, maybe a little below half. So now I'm adding some yellow ochre and just doing some little X strokes, putting a little color in there, blending. Now I'm adding a little bit of that cad yellow deep hue. It's a little bit on the orangey side, which makes for a pretty sunrise. So I'm just blending that in, tapping my brush, taking the excess off, adding a little more, doing little X strokes, blending and going down a little ways, and just putting a little here and there. So now I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre and some more of that cad yellow deep hue. And you can even use a red if you want, rather than the cad yellow deep hue. Red will work. Just blend it in, because below the halfway mark is going to be the horizon line. So I want to make sure that's nice and straight. So now I've added a little bit of phthalo blue up in the top corner there. I've added a little alizarin crimson to make kind of a lavender, deep lavender, because I want the corner kind of dark. Same with the other side. I put alizarin crimson down first and then added my blue. It doesn't really matter, but it's kind of a deep lavender sky. And I'm just blending that in, pulling it down a little bit, and pulling it across into the skyline there. Just softening it up. Little circles. And adding a little cad yellow, just to break up that line there. Want to make it, sporadic. You don't want it real straight. I'm adding a little phthalo blue and white right on the top there. I'm just doing little tiny little circles. I'm going to have a little blue sky up there. And just going all the way to the left and all the way to the right on top, blending it in, and you'll see the lavender colors start to show there. It's going to be really pretty. Adding a little white. Doesn't have to be real dark at the bottom, but along the edge there you want it light. And just blend little circular motions. You can even add a little bit of red at the bottom of that blue, a light blue, and just blend it in though. Blend it all in. Add a little white, and it'll soften up. Adding a little blue underneath some of those dark clouds there. Using the fan brush works good. Just blend it in. Softening it up. And on the far right there, I'm just adding a little bit of the cad yellow deep hue. Almost looks red there. And just pulling that into those dark clouds. I'm bringing a little bit of that down into the sky. And softening the underneath part with the fan brush. Just going back and forth. And just smoothing, adding a little more of that orangey color at the bottom there along the horizon line. Just blending it in. And even add a little bit of yellow into your lighter area there, and maybe a little touch of white. And just work on that sky. I've decided I wanted to lighten up the far right side a little bit, so I added a little bit of yellow up there, and the orange, and I'm just taking away a little bit of that deep lavender. There you see the yellow. I'm just putting in some cad yellow deep hue in there, that orangey color, and just kind of lightening that area up a little bit. I thought it was just a little bit too dark. So it's easy to correct the sky if it's too dark. It's not a big deal. And just add your cad yellow and just blend it in there. Now I've mixed up a dark color, kind of like the sky. It's a deep phthalo blue with a touch of alizarin crimson. And it's very dark color. I've got a round brush. I'm tapping in some trees, background trees there. Just tapping some in, base color for some trees. Lightly tapping, getting those nice little brush strokes for the tops of the trees. Just really, really light. My canvas is a little loose there. When I get done with this, the best way to tighten up your canvas is to take a warm washcloth with warm water on it, squeeze it out, and just go on the back side of that canvas and just wipe it down pretty good. Put it in a nice place to dry, and it'll be great the next day. It'll tighten right up. Every once in a while you get a loose canvas like this, but so now I'm working on the other side. I'm just putting in those trees, background trees, tapping in. Just base color is all it is. We go along the bottom and just fill that, tap it in. Now I'm taking a liner brush and I dipped it in a little black, and I'm just creating some trees back there. Not all the way to the top, but they're going to be fairly tall. Make sure they're nice and filled in. I'll be adding some branches to those trees after a bit. Just twirling my brush a little bit as I go upward. Putting some more in the right, smaller ones. Just laying the groundwork for background trees. Now on the left there, it's fairly tall. I'm going to have a couple of taller trees there. Just adding a little few branches here and there. And I add another couple of taller ones there. Those are going to be pine trees. So I'm doing some branches that hang downward. There's various kinds of evergreens, and this one is going to have the downward boughs. So now I'm taking a 1" with a little bit of sap green and with a touch of yellow ochre. I'm just brushing the land there where it ends, or where it starts, I guess. It's going to continue on, but that's where the tree line pretty much ends. And just watch your lay of the land. There's a little bit of hill there. Now I'm taking a round brush, 1" round. I dipped it in a little bit of sap green, and I'm just kind of dotting in some leaves there, forming in some leaves around where those trees are. Starting to put a little color in back there. I've added a touch of cad yellow to that brush now, just a touch. You can start to see the outline of the trees, create some lower trees, another row below. I've gone all the way across. Tapping in some more bushes back there. And it doesn't take much. It's just a very light tap, because you don't need a lot on your brush. And I do tap my brush often after I get done. I take the excess paint off before I dip into some more paint. I'm working on the other side now with the sap green with a touch of cad yellow. Kind of an olive green. It's not really bright green. Because I'll be highlighting these trees toward the end. I'm making another dark row of trees with Van Dyke Brown with a little bit of your sap green, just tapping in some trees right in front of the ones you just made, making a darker row. It gives it some depth. So I'm pulling some of that color down a little bit. The brush, just pulling some of that excess color. And I'm going the direction of where the land is going now. The left side is going kind of downward and the right side is a little bit downward. looks like a little valley there. I'm adding a little bit of the cad yellow deep hue, the orangey color, and I'm putting a little Van Dyke brown on there too. And burnt sienna is a beautiful color. You can add that in for the background of the grass there. We're going to have some grasses and flowers there, different things. And I bring the darker color right down to the bottom of the canvas. But I'm going to leave the bottom part, bottom center, it's going to be a pond. And so I don't want to put a lot of that color down there below the middle line. And brushing in a little bit. It's not going to be a big pond, but it's going to have a few reflections from that sky. I'm adding a little bit of the burnt sienna with a touch of the cad yellow hue. You can even use red if you want. Kind of brushing inward there, leaving an open area in the center. And just blending some of that color in. And it's okay to have some light, that light burnt sienna in the center. That's okay, because the water's not going to be blue. And just continue to brush across. If you have too much paint, take a shop rag, blue shop towel, and just lay it over the front of that. Take a little of that excess off. Okay, now I'm going to start adding some foliage in the back with some cad yellow with my fan brush. Little grassies way in the distance. Just lifting up a little bit, pushing and lifting up. Creating some grassies back there in the distance. Just dotting some color back there. Kind of where the tree line bushes end and where the grasses start. I've added a little bit of the orangey color in there just to give it some highlights back there. Working my way across with some orange color, pushing up. That area is going to be really bright because that's where the sun is hitting. So I want to have a glow look to it there. Now there's different ways of making grassies, and you see me pushing downward with my fan brush. You can get some awesome looking grasses doing that. Or you can just lift upward, push and lift upward, which I'm doing both. It's a great little technique to know if you're in a tight spot there. I'm adding a little dark layer in there with the Van Dyke brown and adding a light. It's like light and dark. And there I added a little bit of dark there. Van Dyke brown or burnt sienna works. Putting a little color back there, different layers. Making more grasses. Adding a little red in places here and there back in the distance and a little bit in the front. Adding some more dark Van Dyke brown in there, just lifting up, creating some little grasses. Putting a little red in there, another layer of dark. Now I'm getting close to my pond edge there, so I'm not gonna go much farther than that. I'm pulling down some of that dark color as if it's reflection from in the water. And then I'm brushing across lightly. Another little dark one there, and just kind of going into the water, making some reflections, pulling down. And then brushing across. Now the other side, the little shoreline there, I'm going to just darken that area up where the land meets. It's just a very small pond there. Now I'm adding a little yellow ochre to my 1 inch there, just tapping in real light. I'm going to start creating some leaves, base color leaves on the trees. Just tapping very lightly. And if you find your paint doesn't stick, just dip your brush a little bit in some paint thinner, very, very little, and then just tap it on a paper towel and continue. I'm just tapping in some leaves on those background trees. Figuring out where I'm going to go here. Just add some more leaves right into that sunlight area there. And the big one on the side. They're just background. Okay, I'm putting in my big pine tree there using a fan brush, rocking back and forth, zigzag. And filling in, if you don't, if you see holes in there, you can always go back and fill those in. But it's kind of a gnarly looking tree, so I'm not being real super fussy. But it shows up really nice against that sky, doesn't it? And like I say, you can go back and fill in those open areas. I'm pushing harder now as I get toward the where the grasses begin. I'm doing another one, second one there. Same thing, it's sap green with a touch of phthalo blue, just a touch. But it's a dark color, very dark. I'll be highlighting those too after a bit. And you can leave some of that sunlight showing through. It's kind of pretty. I'm just working my way down, filling in what I see needs to be filled in. And just go all the way down to the grass line there. Okay, I've got another pine tree, a smaller one, doing the same thing. Using the corner of my fan brush. Just tapping lightly. And there's another one, a smaller one on the right side there. Like I say, you can leave some of that pretty sunlight coming through some of those boughs there. Okay, now I'm going to scrape an area out where I'm going to have my cabin. And I've taken my palette knife, I'm scraping off a little of that paint, kind of shaping my roof line. Now I'm taking some dark Van Dyke brown, touch of black. I'm doing the roof. Just shaping the roof there, and the front of the cabin is straight down. The roof is more of an angle. I'm just taking some of that dark brown color and I'm pulling downward for the front of the building. And now the side, the right side is going to be the dark side, so we won't be highlighting that too much. Now I'm using a fan brush. I've got a little bit of white. I'm just tapping in the roof line there. Using the little edge of that palette knife, creating a little roof line. Now I've got the yellow, cad yellow deep hue of the orange. I'm pulling down. I added a little bit of yellow to that, cad yellow. I've got a little white on the front, pulling down lightly. Now I dipped in some red and I'm creating some boards. And going across, creating the front. Got a little bit of black on my palette knife. Just created a door. I'm up on the roof there. I'm creating the other side. Now a little window. I'm using a liner to define the edge of that. The sunlight is kind of hitting that, so that's going to be a real light area. But I wanted to put that in. Now I'm putting some sunlight on some boards in front there with a liner brush. I'm going right into my trees. I'm highlighting with cad yellow fan brush. Going all around, just creating some more grassy areas with cad yellow. Pushing up, creating some grasses around the cabin. I'm adding a little red there in front. Just tapping in a little bit for some ground color. Bringing in a little bit of cad yellow. Almost looks like flowers in there. So now I've got a little bit of the red. Or you can use that orange color and make a little tiny little path in front of that door. Now on the right there, I'm just adding some yellow ochre for part of the land there, and I have added some yellow ochre and cad yellow for my grasses. Tapping in some color in the back for the trees, the cad yellow, shaping them a little more, highlighting them. And I'm highlighting the back trees with cad yellow on top of those leaves that you put in. In fact, could add a little white to your yellow and make it real bright there, especially by the sun rays. Now in the water, I've got a fan brush with some cad yellow. I'm adding a little sunlight area there, hitting and brushing across, pulling down shadows and brushing across in the water. Kind of blurs a little bit when you do that. Now I'm adding some water lines with my palette knife, cad yellow and white. Looks more like water all the time, doesn't it? Just go underneath that shoreline, bring in a little movement in the water. I've got some Van Dyke brown with a touch of black. I'm making some rocks. Just forming little rocks there along the shoreline. Little U-shaped circle rocks. They don't have to be real big. Put as many as you want in there. I've got quite a few. I'll be highlighting those with a little bit of light gray, an off-white color. After I get them all in, I'll show you how I do that. That'll really make them pop. There we go. Aren't they pretty? Just adding a little white, light gray. I'm just tipping tops of those rocks. And just I'd put them all around the little shoreline there. Just highlighting. Like I say, you can put as many as you want in there. Working my way around to the other side. The rocks really make it, don't they? You know, I almost see a finished painting here. I really enjoyed doing this one, and I hope you do too. So if you want to see more of these, hit the like button, follow me, share if you want. So until next time, happy painting, and God bless.